Ladies and gentlemen, Rolling Stone is getting it so very wrong. In the wake of two mass shootings, fake news proliferates on social media. Mass shooting events are a prime opportunity for far-right trolls to push their own political agendas. And this time it had to do with Antifa in Charlottesville. It's funny, always accuse the enemy of that which you are guilty of doing. And also, call them far-right even when they're not. Second paragraph. It was particularly surprising that many on the far right threw their weight behind one particular rumor that Antifa or far-left anti-fascists were responsible for the attacks. Okay, that sentence right there is wrong. They're not anti-fascist. They just call them, but they call themselves anti-fascist. Yeah, and the Nazi Party called itself socialist, and China and North Korea calls themselves People's Republics, and the Ministry of Truth calls itself the Ministry of Truth, etc. You get what I'm saying, alright? The Patriot Act is patriotic. It's anti-patriotic. Antifa is not anti-fascist. They just call themselves that. Anyway, they continue, and this happened via a pattern of expertly orchestrated misinformation campaigns on the right that extremism researchers say are sadly par for the course. Okay, so at this point I want to say, before this article came out, we already proved that if that Twitter account that reportedly belongs to Connor Betts of the Dayton shooter allegedly, if that is his, and if he is the shooter, then he is Antifa. We've already proven it in former videos. See the links below. Okay, so you can see down here it says far right latched on the Daily Quarter article from July 30th, which accused Antifa of planning a terror campaign and siege of El Paso, Texas, in order to raise awareness of alleged abuses of the U.S.-Mexico border. The report was based on a tweet by citizen journalist Andy No. He's actually a professional journalist. He writes for Wall Street Journal, etc., so whatever. After he was attacked by anti-fascist counter-protesters at a Proud Boys rally in Portland last June. It wasn't a Proud Boys rally. The Proud Boys rally was in a different location entirely. Do they get anything right in this article? Of course, there was no evidence that the Border Resistance military tour was organized by Antifa or promoted as such. Okay, that's another one. What was it, a week ago? I put out a video proving that is a lie. we just go to Twitter and look up Antifa and go back a few days or a week and see what we showed you on video. That most certainly, not just, look, little anti-fascist, it's going down itself. Okay, who is going to deny in this tweet that they had anything to do with it, was saying that it was their thing. Okay, they put out no less than one article and a few tweets saying this is the border resistance and we all have to be anti-fascists and do the border resistance. We've already proven these things. I don't know how many times I gotta say that. That's a lie. We've already proven it. All right. Where were we? One organizer told the National Observer that it was intended to be a series of non-violent actions. Okay, then why on the poster are you showing violence? Arrows, Molotov cocktails, etc.
Because it's not violence if they do it.
Yeah. Their violence is free speech. Other people's free speech is violence. Okay. Of course, there was no evidence that the Border Resistance military tour was organized by Antifa or promoted such, with one organizer telling the National Observer that it was intended to be a series of non-violent actions to raise awareness of human rights violations at the border. Quote, nowhere do we say that we're Antifa or part of Antifa, unquote. Oh, well, that settles it.
Oh, you said that, so that's okay. That means it's true. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay, everybody, I retract everything I've said so far because, these liars said that it's not true, so therefore it's not true.
Well, I'm really a princess, so that's true.
Well, if you identify as such...
Royalty.
If you identify as such...
I do. That's how stupid that is. I can just declare anything I want, and without any evidence whatsoever, it's automatically true by their standards. Okay. We can do that.
This is so funny. Okay, so basically, Rolling Stone, they're another case that I should add to our series about Antifa and mainstream media and Twitter. Because this is mainstream media, and here they are, spinning the narrative in favor of, and according to Antifa, that's part of anti-fascism. It involves not just action in the streets, but also propaganda. So there you go. Okay, so we have this from It's Going Down from August 3rd. That was after I already proved that they are, in fact, pushing the narrative that you should do this stuff. If you don't know, folks, It's Going Down is arguably the largest propaganda outlet for Antifa. They tweeted the connection between the horrific white nationalist mass murder spree today in El Paso and Fox News giving airtime to far-right grifter Andy No, who spew nonsense about quote-unquote Antifa violence coming from El Paso, aka Abolish ICE protester camp, needs to be put front and center. Okay, but you already pushed this thing, so you can't... Okay, on the one hand, they're saying, hey, everybody, it's the border resistance, you should all get involved with this. And then a couple days later, they're like, we don't know why anybody would say that.
Gee, I wonder.
Oh, gosh. You know, and I bet you
You're afraid of being labeled terrorist now.
Yep.
Yeah, which is exactly what's going to happen to you because the evidence is unbelievable as to both shooters being Antifas.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good God. No wonder you want a distance now. So we should definitely believe the words of terrorists that they didn't at all have anything to do with the domestic terrorists that shot up a bunch of people. Yeah, okay.
Apparently I misspelled resistance, but let's look at it's going down. All right. Right here. This is what we showed you in the form of video. This is from July 29th. Okay, so like I said, it's about a week ago. Call to action, border resistance tour, and convergence. Okay, they're not even smart enough to take down their website.
Nope.
In which they call to action, border resistance, and convergence, El Paso, Texas, abolish ICE, shut it down, register, donate, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Right there. How many seconds did it take me? About 4 seconds typing, right? Now, folks, I don't really know too much about all these shootings. What I do know is that it is being reported that that was the Dayton, Ohio shooter's Twitter. And I do know that that Twitter is unmistakably Antifa. I'm not going to say that that Twitter belonged to the shooter. I'm just saying that if it is true, as is being reported, then he is Antifa. Now, I see a lot of media outlets or whatever are saying that the guy was a leftist, but almost no one is saying Antifa. Tim Pool put 2 and 2 together a few hours after we did. I think it was maybe 6-10 hours later, something like that. So some people are reporting on that after we did, but there you go. The Antifa conspiracy theory gained more traction when more information started to emerge about the alleged Dayton shooter who fatally shot 9 people outside a bar in a popular downtown district early hours on Sunday morning. Unlike the El Paso shooter, the Dayton shooter undoubtedly harbored left-leaning rather than extremist right-wing views. Okay, at least they're saying that, but they're not actually saying it's so obvious. Just look through it. I mean, granted, it was taken down, so maybe they can't, but I mean, I archived it. And so they can just go search and find it. Alright? Or just look at our videos. I mean, it shouldn't take too long to find our videos if you're, you know, if you have any sort of dedication, if your attention span is longer than 2 minutes. Right? Many on Twitter shared screen grabs of his social media account in which he appeared to self-identify as an anime/metal fan/leftist and expressed his support for such candidates as Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. BuzzFeed News also reported that he was a member of a local porno grind metal band, whatever that is, and another band member in the scene tweeting that he was, quote, another dime a dozen Ohio grind dude who, okay, whatever. Go ahead.
Another thing. The El Paso shooter, the Antifa.
Yeah.
He had 2 accounts. One was a sock account that was created only 2 months ago, which was extremely pro-Trump.
Right.
You know, anti-immigration. It's only 2 months old. His other account has been up for a very long time.
Right.
In fact, from what I read earlier, he actually comes from a very left-leaning family, and his dad is some sort of, like, I am crystal magic wizard man.
Okay.
He's that guy.
Uh-huh.
You know, he's obvious hippie trash raising mentally inept children because, well, I killed him sage when he was born, and I let crystals guide his life, and the zodiacs decide his fate. Yeah. That doesn't raise a good child that knows right from wrong. By the way, kids also on meds. That's a very distinct connection between all of the shooters that are young males.
The common denominator.
Yeah, that whole let's dope them up all their life because little boys aren't allowed to be rambunctious little boys anymore. They just have to be malfunctioning little girls. Yeah. So let's dope them up so they act like better little girls.
Rolling Stone continues about how right-wing pundits immediately began speculating that the Dayton shooter was a member of Antifa, But aside from a retweet of an Antifa account, okay, that's not correct, as we've shown. The Twitter account itself was putting out pro-Antifa stuff and, retweeting a lot of other Antifa account posts or tweets or whatever. His Twitter account does not contain any references to anti-fascist activity. Not true. Not true. Okay, now, at this point you could say, well, maybe Rolling Stone didn't know that. Okay, well then they shouldn't say as if it is a fact. They're not saying reportedly or we couldn't find any. They're saying it does not contain any reference to anti-fascist activity. We've proven that is wrong. They continue, nor did he appear to engage in any local Antifa action. That may be true, I don't know. Which would be expected in Dayton, an anti-fascist hotspot. Now, again, one of the reasons why they wear masks is so that we can't tell whether or not they're engaging in, black bloc tactics. Says Emily Gorsensky, a far-right researcher and creator of First Vigil, which tracks far-right extremism in the United States. Well, Emily, if that is true that you did say that, you're full of shit. And you're either incompetent or a liar. Quote, typically what we see is anti-fascist activists in there mostly focused on their local issues. I think maybe the editor messed up in that sentence. The folks in Portland, they talk about Portland. The folks in D.C. talk about D.C., unquote, says Gorsensky. Quote, he didn't talk about any anti-fascist activities, unquote. That's okay. Okay, well, now we know that this Gorsensky person is incompetent or a liar. Anyway, perhaps more importantly, the shooter reportedly had a history of making misogynistic and violent threats. That doesn't indicate that he's not Antifa. In fact, that might indicate that he is Antifa. Okay, folks, we have an entire series, who does Antifa actually attack? And you would think, oh, well, they never attack people of color or transgender people or gay people or immigrants or adolescents or old people or differently abled people or disabled people, whenever you want to call it. We've proven that they've done all of those things. Okay? We have another series, Antifa being racist. I think there's 3 or 4 episodes of that, of Antifa deliberately being racist. Okay? It's the whole psychological projection thing. You deny what you are, you push it down deep inside until all of a sudden it comes out. It's kind of like when you try to push a basketball underwater. Okay, you get it down about 3 or 4 feet and you can't do it anymore. It comes exploding out. Boom! Because the further you push it down, the more violently it comes up. Now, the fact that he was deeply immersed in toxic masculinity. Oh, holy shit. Is this real life? Oh, is this a joke? Okay, it's not a joke. It's a joke, but unintentionally. Rolling Stone, you're silly. Okay. Alright, we can't read this whole thing, but that is craziness. Oh my goodness. While conspiracy theories that stir anti-left sentiments after national tragedies are undoubtedly toxic. Oh, I mean, unlike it's the NRA's fault. It's Trump's fault. It's the right wing. They're all far right. The entire wing. Holy shit. I don't mean to laugh because this is a tragic situation, but I'm laughing at just how stupid Rolling Stone is and the readers who actually believe this garbage. Wow. It is also not surprising that many of these rumors and conspiracy theories would point the finger specifically at Antifa. Gee, I wonder why. A term used to describe a loose collective of anti-fascist groups. Again, they are not anti-fascist, so this is yet another bit of misreporting. How many times in this article did they get things wrong? About a dozen so far. And I've skipped over a lot. Groups that show up to counter-protests at far-right rallies. That's another one. Okay, sometimes they do go to far-right rallies. Usually they don't. Usually they're going to rallies of just regular people who want constitutional rights and they're pro-America. I know, that's white nationalism. Yeah, okay. Yeah, civil rights are white nationalists. Bullshit. Over the past few months, anti-Antifa rhetoric has sharply increased. I wonder why. Especially following the widely publicized attacks on No, which drew condemnation on both sides of the political aisle. President Donald Trump has threatened to label Antifa a terrorist group. Ooh, he threatened. And Republic Senator Ted Cruz calling for legislation to classify anti-fascist protesters as a domestic terrorism threat. This in spite the fact that white supremacist violence is verifiably on the rise. Okay, now hold on a second. It's not fair to label one group terrorism when there's another group out there that are terrorists too. because we can only do one. Can't do them all. See how stupid that argument is? All you have to do is think about it for a moment to see how stupid. And by the way, this is something that apparently is being handed out to the media to say, because pretty much every article about this says the same goddamn thing. If they're going to mention about the proposal to label Antifa domestic terrorist group, they always go, well, they want to label Antifa domestic terrorist group despite the fact that there are all these other groups that are dangerous. Really, really dumb. Let's scroll down. Such misinformation, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I see that they mentioned the SPLC. We got to read this because we've already done a series showing that the SPLC is full of shit and themselves racist. Such misinformation is intended to bolster the narrative on the far right that the left poses a violent threat that is tantamount to that posed by the far-right extremists. Quote, anything that reinforces this narrative of a violent left and supposed equivalency is really disingenuous and dangerous, unquote. Keegan Hanks, senior analyst at Southern Poverty Law Center, previously told the Rolling Stone, listen, it's mainstream media news that the SPLC is full of shit and that they lie. They lie about the Proud Boys, they lie about Antifa, they lie about everything. Alright? Oh, and by the way, all these people saying, well, you know, the far right is a lot more dangerous than the far left and blah, blah, blah. I don't know about that. We've already shown in previous videos, and we plan to do more in the future, how it is mainstream for members of Congress, for people in Hollywood, and people in mainstream media to celebrate Antifa, to call for violence for that side. You don't get it on the other side. Okay? So you might say, well, far-right extremists have killed more people. Okay, give it some time. When you get people like Cortez, Valerie Demings, Keith Ellison, Tim Kaine, Joe Biden, people in mainstream media, and even celebrities either saying the word Antifa and calling for violence, or just calling for, you know, the tactics that Antifa uses. Maxine Waters is another one. I could go on and on and on. When you have all these people normalizing far-left violence, how long will it be before something like an Antifa in Dayton, Ohio goes out and kills people? Well, gee, maybe it already happened. But you can expect a lot more. Okay? So yeah, I'll believe that the far-right is as much a threat to civil society in America when the right-wing Republican conservative jackasses are starting to say, you know, people should be on the far right and they should commit violence for the far right. Well, when that happens, then I'll start taking seriously these claims that the far right is a bigger threat. And by the way, two things can be true at the same time, idiots. Okay, anything else here? Let's see. PragerU, they call PragerU a far-right media outlet. Oh, okay. Well, I don't have time to point out how many dozens of incorrect things are in this article, so we're just gonna skip ahead. Okay. Trump's rhetoric. Boo. Okay, so nothing about all the calls for violence. Okay, notice, by the way, they say dog whistles. When people on the right say X, what they really mean is Y. When they say X, what they're really saying is go out there and commit violence, okay? But then people on the left are directly calling for violence, saying the words, and somehow that's okay. So, see, the standard is, if somebody says, go out there and punch somebody in the face, on the left, well, they don't really mean that. But if somebody on the right says, we need to resist this madness, they mean, oh, they're calling for people to shoot other people. Insanity. Well, really, intellectual dishonesty. Here we have a correction for 11 a.m. That was a couple hours before I started recording this. An earlier version of this piece quoted Gorsenski as saying that Dayton was a hotspot of anti-fascist activity. Gorsenski actually said that it was a hotspot of fascist activity. Okay. Rolling Stone shilling for Antifa.